We have a very special guest to discuss the issues of food security, safety, and nutrition, Kansas State University's Provost and Senior Vice President, Dr. April Mason. Dr. Mason is a food science and human nutrition expert whose research has focused on key nutrients in plant-based food products, which provide critical calories and essential nutrients to the world's population. Let's start off talking about food security first and telling the listeners out there how food security is defined.
Food security is the availability of food to a person in a safe and socially acceptable way. And there's some kind of key words in there. Everyone needs to have access to safe food that is unadulterated, that is free of bacteria, foreign substances. And they need to be able to access that food in a socially acceptable way. We think that normally as going to the grocery store, bringing food home to prepare it, going to a restaurant or a fast food establishment to get food. There are people living close, living far away, that receive food in ways that are very foreign to us. They may have to beg for food. They may go through dumpsters to find food. That's a socially unacceptable way to get food. It's certainly not safe.
Putting it into perspective, where in the world are the most food insecurities, the people who are struggling with hunger?
Food insecurity, the lack of appropriate amounts and quality food, is something, unfortunately, people across our entire globe deal with. There are certainly areas of the world that see a higher level of food insecurity, but here in the United States, here in the state of Kansas, even here in the city of Manhattan, we are not immune from individuals who are having trouble getting enough and quality food. We, around the world, produce a great deal of food. And this is where a lot of research here at Kansas State University is very relevant to this issue. Enough food needs to be distributed around the world without it spoiling, without post-harvest waste. So we are doing research here at Kansas State to address just that issue. You can produce food in one place, but if you can't get it to another place, potentially across the world, it's where it's still safe, it's still quality, you've not lost a great deal of it, you're losing so much that you're not addressing the issue. We also have research that's looking at how do we grow plant food products in areas where we haven't grown them before, potentially drought-resistant strains of products that we're currently growing, those that don't need as much input like pesticides, insecticides, other types of things, fertilizers to grow properly. We're really excited here at Kansas State that we have a number of new projects, grants that are being supported by the United States Agency on International Development that are addressing just these kinds of issues. How do we produce more food? How do we produce quality food? How do we keep it from spoiling and have a longer life that it can get to people who actually need it?
And you mentioned preventing food loss, and maybe that's one way. What are some other ways that each individual person can do to help with preventing food waste, helping with this global hunger issue as a whole?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question, and there are things that we can do, each one of us, in our everyday life. I'm a big proponent of just buying the food that you're going to consume. Don't buy a lot of fresh food that's going to spoil before you can actually utilize it. It's pretty amazing how much food goes to waste here in our own country of the United States, that we purchase it and it doesn't actually get utilized. Many programs like universities are going to trayless cafeterias, and they've found that they've reduced the amount of food waste because people will only take what they can carry and actually really want. Whereas you have a big tray, the tendency is to fill that tray with things that then you sit down, you start eating, and you don't actually use. So the things we can do right in our everyday lives. Another thing is to be a part of food drives, and we have a number of very committed groups across our campus who do food drives. We compete with KU every year to collect the most food. This is usually shelf-stable food, canned food products, foods that don't need refrigeration. We can provide food to organizations that distribute that to people who are in need. Worldwide, we can choose professions and areas that we actually impact that. You mentioned the rising population of the world. We are going to have to address that. There are going to be more people to feed. And with our current production and distribution methods, we won't be able to do that. So picking a profession and picking an area that you might want to work. But then there are also people that have a passion and collect food or work in areas on their volunteer time to help food security. We have a couple of groups here on campus that have done food packaging projects where shelf-stable foods are put together in little meal packages, and these are sent to areas of need that have a crisis for food.
And switching gears just a little bit now, I want to talk about the global food system and how food security is related to the global food system. It can be very complex and hard to get one's mind wrapped around. How do you explain what the global food system is?
Well, I look at it as a nutritionist, so I better put my cards on the table. As a nutrition and food science person, I look at it in one particular way. But the global food system, in my mind, is how do we plan to produce food? How do we produce it? How do we process it if it needs to be processed? And then how do we distribute it to places that have the need for it? It's not just quantity of food, it's quality of food. As a nutrition professional, quantity of food is indeed important. You need enough calories, but you also need foods that have key ingredients, key nutrients in them. Iron and zinc, for example, in young growing children, iron for reproductively aged women. You need key nutrients such that the quality of the food is appropriate to nourish our bodies, that we can be really optimally healthy.
On a related topic, biotechnology, genetically modified food production, the use of GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in foods has been around for over 2 decades. From a nutrition standpoint, we see all of these popular cereal brands lately in the news talking about going GMO-free. We've seen a lot of food retailers out there say that they promise to have the GMO-free labeling on their products. Mm-hmm. Again, from a nutrition standpoint, how does GMOs relate to the global food system in addressing hunger?
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked about inputs in production agriculture, the use of fertilizers, the use of pesticides or other things to optimize growth of a particular crop. GMOs are being designed, genetically modified crops are being designed to be resistant to certain types of pesticides, insecticides, etc. They're also being produced to have higher quality nutrition. Golden rice, for example, has higher levels of vitamin A, such that people who consume it would be getting that very important nutrient to prevent something like vitamin A blindness, deficiency blindness. Personally, I have no problem consuming genetically modified food products. There does seem to be a resistance to this, both here in the United States and certainly in Europe. One of the things that I've used to compare the utilization of genetically modified crop products is that there was a great deal of resistance to pasteurizing milk many years ago. People thought something as kind of sacred as milk, that we're doing something to it to modify it and change it, and it won't be as good for us. Now we know that we're destroying potentially sickness-producing organisms, and we're increasing the freshness and longevity of milk products. And many people don't think a thing about pasteurization. It has been a while that we've been talking about genetically modified plant food products, but I see a future where people will see this as one more way we can increase production, that we can feed more people with very high quality food products.
We hear about local food systems, organic food systems, any alternative food systems. How are these different than the global food system, or are they all related in some way?
Local foods, I'm a big proponent of local foods if possible. If we were dependent on local foods today, about 20 degrees outside, I think I'd be pretty hungry potentially. But there are times that it's very important to consume foods that are grown locally. They're fresher. In many cases, they taste much better. It's very hard to think about our foods being distributed all over the world any season of the year. But that is a part of our food system these days. But I think we have the opportunity to eat locally, consume foods that are produced locally. We may even know who produced them. But I look at it from a freshness and a quality perspective. The global food system, there are going to be places like right now where it's cold that we're not going to be able to produce certain foods, and we're going to have to get them from other parts of the world. And we do have that opportunity now to be able to ship or to transport foods great distances, maintaining their quality, their safeness, and their freshness for our consumption.
We have many resources here at our fingertips at Kansas State, a lot of ag and food industry partners located nearby. Let me list just a few of those. The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center, the announcement of the 3 Feed the Future Innovation Labs. We talked about preventing food waste as one of those. The National Bio and Agro Defense Facility coming in, the Biosecurity Research Institute, Kansas Department of Agriculture, many, many more. How will this help K-State in solving some of these global food issues?
It's a great thing to talk about. I think we have this wonderful opportunity right now of kind of a nexus of state government, the Homeland Security USDA facility in NBAF, our own Biosecurity Research Institute, and then our many, many departments and faculty and graduate students and undergraduates who are positioned to make contributions to the global food system. What's nice about having all of these in a very close geographic area is that scientists can talk across those lines, whether it be state government, federal government, or our local university. It's awfully nice to have colleagues close where discussions can go on and collaborative research. And I think that's one of the wonderful opportunities that we have with NBAF coming, is that collaborative research can be conducted. Scientists can be talking to each other. We can be addressing common problems. Something like increasing our food production in anticipation of a much larger population in our world means that many different people need to come together to address that issue. And that's really a nice center here in Manhattan being built, that we bring all of those entities together to address a very important issue.
In your opinion, do you think that Kansas State is unique in its ability to train students for careers in addressing the global food system and those issues surrounding it?
I think land-grant universities in general are in a very unique position to train the future scientists, the future individuals who will address global food systems. I think here at Kansas State University we have an even more unique position because of our federal laboratories, because of the Department of Agriculture coming into our city, because of very close ties. Certainly in certain areas of the food system, we are unparalleled in our ability to address wheat, sorghum issues, and certain livestock issues. We just have certain types of laboratories, certain types of facilities, certain types of scientists who have been attracted to come here, and that allows us to train students, to work with students, and to really heighten the collaboration to address the important issue.
As the animal health corridor as well kind of takes shape, really stretching across Missouri and all the way to Kansas State, how do you see K-State's role in developing that animal health corridor?
One of the things that I would address related to assisting and being very active in the animal health corridor is in the workforce development area. I think Kansas State's in a unique position to work directly with industry and government along the animal health corridor, and then to address some real workforce issues. Because if we have a workforce shortage, we need to address that, and I think we already are in certain areas.
Good. Well, great information from our K-State Provost and Senior Vice President, April Mason, a food and nutrition expert weighing in on the challenges of providing enough safe and accessible food to feed a growing world population. Thank you for coming by today.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Agriculture Today.